Hello, welcome back to my kitchen. Today we're doing a recipe that might actually be more difficult than the crepe recipe, so we're gonna see how this goes. A little update with crepes. My birthday, Mother's Day, all that kind of coincided, that's the word, right around the same time. So I went up to see my parents, spend time with my mom for Mother's Day. And in that visit, I made some crepes, and my mom does have a crepe pan, so I don't know if that helped or if not putting in oil every single time, like between every single crepe, made a difference. Because I realize in hindsight that happens with pancakes. Like the first batch usually kind of looks a little spotty, and then the second batch will be like nice and smooth, even color. So I wonder if that was my issue, because I was adding coconut oil between every single crepe. So pro tip, if you're making some crepes, don't oil every single time. I need to try it again with my pan to see if that methodology works in a saute pan versus a crepe pan, but I was pretty happy with that, especially because I was making it for other people. Me messing up on cooking for myself, I'm fine with, because I know that it'll taste good. Appearance isn't much. But when you're making it for other people, you kind of want it to look nice and taste good. So stressing me out a little bit, but I'm happy that worked out. What we're doing today, which I don't think I actually said it yet, but we're making Japanese pancakes, also known as souffle pancakes. So these are gonna be more difficult than the crepes because we have to make a meringue, and we don't want that to break, which I think is the issue that I had in, was it the macaroon episode, where it's like the coconut and whatnot, the little kind of mound of coconut. I believe my meringue collapsed in that, and that's why it was very dense. So hopefully these hold up, and the recipe does give little tips, little tricks to prevent that from happening. So I'm gonna try and follow those to the best of my abilities, and hopefully we get nice fluffy pancakes out of the deal. And I don't think I've ever had a souffle. I'm thinking about that now. Maybe once I taste it, I'll be reminded of something. The only souffle memory that I have in my head is from Doctor Who. And it was a woman who was just like constantly making souffles, which then led to, I'm not gonna spoil anything, but a reveal that was quite good. So if I don't know what episode that is, but I mean, just go watch Doctor Who, it's a great show. I should be wearing my Doctor Who shirt today, but I'm not wearing a bird shirt. Anywho, I think that's all the ramblings that I got. So why don't we run through the ingredients and then get into cooking. Sugar, flour, lemon, eggs, milk. The recipe says you can effectively use any milk, so it doesn't have to be a dairy milk, so almond milk, soy milk, whatnot. Vanilla, cornstarch, and baking powder. So the first step is going to be to separate the egg whites from the egg yolks. Now don't worry, we're not wasting the egg yolks, because I did mention we're making meringue, which we all know now just involves the egg whites. The recipe does say that to kind of help with the meringue process, to keep things from collapsing later, we want everything to stay nice and cold. So the egg yolks are going back into the fridge, and the egg whites are actually gonna go in the freezer. We have a few steps before we need them, but it's not gonna be too long that it's gonna freeze or anything. So I guess we're just trying to keep them really nice and cold. Separate egg whites, egg yolks in the fridge, egg whites in the freezer. See you in the next step. The next step, we'll see, hopefully this isn't super important, but it does say to sift the flour, cornstarch, and the baking powder. I don't own like a sifter, I think is the term for it. I should buy one. All I have is kind of a big sieve that I'll put the powders in and shake and let them kind of fall through. But that's gonna take a while. So I might get bored. We're gonna see how much of it I can do before I'm like, nah dog. So yeah, so sift all this together in a bowl, stir to combine at the end just in case that the sifting process didn't mix everything all up, and then set that to the side. next step is effectively making the batter. So we're going to take all of the wet ingredients, so the egg yolks that we have in the fridge, vanilla, and the milk, combine them in a bowl, and then we're gonna add in the sifted dry ingredients that we just made in the last step into the bowl, mix that all up, and then, like I said, we wanna keep everything nice and cold, so pop that back in the fridge while we do the next steps. All right, next step, making the meringue. Pretty important. So instead of me just trying to off the top of my head remember how to do it that the recipe says, I'm just gonna read it from the recipe, because that way you're getting the right information and I'm getting the information reinforced so that I don't say the wrong thing and then go, oh, that's how you're supposed to do it, and then do the wrong thing. If I read it, it'll reinforce it in my brain of like, that's what you're supposed to do. Plus, because I can't talk good, I will film this numerous times, and those repetitions, I'm gonna lock it in. Spoiler alert, this is already my third time reading this. Obviously, remove the egg whites from the freezer, and then we're going to beat them with a hand mixer on high for 1 minute, and then add the lemon juice, and then we're going to add the sugar in 3 parts. It doesn't say over how much time, so that's kind of one of those little question marks in there. So just add a third, I guess whip it up a little bit, add a third, whip up a little bit, add another third. Then, but it says keep whipping for about 8 minutes, which I feel like that's just like a general, like roughly it should take about 8 minutes, because what you're actually going for are stiff peaks. So it's like time really isn't a factor. You want stiff peaks because you also don't want to overmix it. Overmixing is bad. So use the 8 minutes as kind of guardrails, but you really probably should kind of start checking it pretty early on, see if the peaks are stiff, and then once they hit that point, stop. Obviously in the editing, you probably only see my last check, but there will probably be multiple. So you're gonna need to be mixing, check it, mixing, check it. All right, so let's go make some meringue. Okay, so now it's kind of the final step of making the batter. We're going to take the batter that we have in the fridge and combine it with the meringue that we just made. We're going to take a quarter of the meringue, put that into the batter, and it says mix it well with it says tablespoon. I'm assuming they just mean like a big spoon, not like the measuring utensil tablespoon. Mix it well, so we're probably gonna be like breaking down that meringue that we just made. But then we're going to take the batter and pour it into the meringue and just kind of fold everything over to incorporate, but don't over mix it. So that's kind of a key step, don't over mix it, which since I haven't done this before, I don't really know where that line is. So hopefully I don't cross it. I'm just gonna try and get it all mixed, but not too much. So wish me luck. We're at the finish line. All we have left to do is to cook these pancakes. Add a little bit of oil, low heat. We're gonna add in, it's gonna total 3 tablespoons, but we're gonna obviously like layer it up. So like 1 down and then 1 on top and then 1 on top of that, because we're building up that height of at least that's what I'm assuming, just based on reading. I haven't done it yet. So kind of build up the height of the pancake. And Then we're going to cover and let that cook for 3 minutes. And then we're gonna flip it. Hopefully it's kind of like a golden brown color. Cover it again, let it cook for another 3 minutes, and then you're done. Time to serve up. All right, so here we have them. I'm pretty happy with how these came out. It only made 3. In my head, I thought that it was gonna make like enough to serve a handful of people, because that's usually how kind of pancake recipes work. But this feels like a single serving of pancakes, unless they're extremely filling. But I suspect that they won't be, because it's just fluffed up egg whites. It's really not gonna add anything to the amount that I can consume. So I suspect that this recipe is kind of a 1 serving size. So if you're gonna have like a handful of people, you need to multiply this a few times. Now, if you make this as like part of a larger breakfast, then you obviously can just like, here's the 1 specialty item, and then fill up on like scrambled eggs and bacon or something. Relatively easy. I still kind of worried when it's the whole like fold in step. So that will come out in the taste test, like, is it incorporated enough, or am I getting bites of just egg whites, and then bites of like the batter? But I didn't want to overdo it, so I kind of erred on, I think, the side of underdoing it. So we'll see how that affects everything. But there's sugar in the meringue, so it should still be kind of a good bite, just might not have all of the flavor complexity of the full pancake. The other thing is, you need to kind of serve these fresh and eat them fresh, because if you let them sit for too long, like the first one already started deflating by the time I made the third one. So that was a little disappointing, but they still hold a good size to them. Like, they're definitely distinct from a normal pancake. I just thought that they were gonna kind of remain quite tall, but they definitely deflated a bit. So they kind of, I feel like, halved in size, because they were pretty big. And then now they're just kind of big. The other thing is, I remembered from last year when I made donuts for my birthday, I bought these cookie cutters that are just a whole bunch of different sized circles, so that I could make the big circle, and then I had smaller ones to make the kind of donut hole aspect get cut out. But you could use these as kind of molds to make them perfect circles if you decided to. You don't have to, obviously, because I went with not doing that, but if you wanted to be real fancy, doing some kind of mold probably is a good idea. All right, I think that's enough rambling. Why don't we give it a taste test? All right, so overall, these are, I would say, pretty good. They're not as kind of flavorful as normal pancakes would be, in my opinion, but I also typically will add blueberries and like lemon zest and like lemon juice and stuff like that to mine. So I might not be making a good comparison there, which these, I'm curious to see what would happen if you did add fruit to it, because I feel like it would fall down into it and then possibly be protected by the puffiness of it. So then you just have like a raw blueberry sitting on the inside. But that might be an interesting addition, because to me they are kind of, they feel like a bit of like a plain vessel, where they're tasty, they have like a nice delicate sweet flavor to them, but on their own they're not really doing a whole lot. So, or even making something like we did for the Dutch baby episode, where you kind of make like a berry, well, I mean, you guys didn't see any of it because the film, but if you made a berry compote, you could kind of drizzle that on top, especially something like tart. I feel like this would pair well with something tart. It's good. The texture is I think like the big selling point for this. It's like a very light, delicate experience from eating it. I also realized now that normal pancakes I cook with butter, and this I did not cook with butter. So that might have also been a good addition, because it kind of will give it that kind of rich, buttery flavor to it. So these might also taste a little bit more kind of neutral and delicate because I didn't use butter in the cooking of it. That's on me because the recipe just says oil, and my default oil is olive oil that I have sitting there. So butter might be a change. Make a berry compote. I feel like those two things together would probably add a nice like richness and then a nice tart, and I feel like that would be real good. I think that's all the points that I wanted to make for you guys. I really should write these things down. I kind of had a mental list in my head, but yeah, so I think these are great. The complexity is just, I think, mostly in the folding in the meringue, but erring on the side of caution panned out well. I didn't really notice any kind of patchy flavor of like only meringue versus only batter. I took a few bites just to make sure. So yeah, I think if you have a hand mixer, that's kind of the only bit of specialty equipment that you need per se, but I feel like a lot of people have that, and if not, they're relatively cheap online. So I think this is a pretty accessible recipe to kind of everybody, and it's quite fancy feeling. So it's one of those ones you can kind of show off a little bit without actually needing too much practice in showing off, versus some recipes that require a lot of technique that takes doing it over and over and over again to achieve it. This one, not so much, but it is quite fun. Yeah, I have nothing else for you. I'm going to go enjoy eating all these. I definitely can eat all 3 of them, so there's not gonna be any leftovers for breakfast tomorrow. So I'm gonna have to figure out what I'm gonna make for that, because I was kind of banking on leftovers. Anywho, on that note, bye Mom, still not dead. See you.